He wore a fake plastic nose to save hip-hop. Picture the early 90s. The bass is rattling the trunk of a Chevy Impala. The air smells like hairspray and excitement. On every radio station, a man with a goofy voice is telling you to do the Humpty dance. The world laughed. The world danced. But the world missed the truth. The man behind those glasses was not a joke. He was a musical prodigy. He could paint like an artist and play the piano like he was born in a jazz club. While MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice were dancing on TV, this man was in the lab. He was mixing blues and funk into a potion that took rap music to the suburbs. But here's the twist. He gave it all away. He found a young kid named Tupac Shakur and pushed him into the spotlight. He emptied his bank accounts to help his community. He caught snakes with his bare hands in Florida swamps, but the music industry was the most dangerous beast of all. How does a genius end up giving away his last dime? Why is the man who created icons often the most forgotten one of all? The party has to end sometime. The story begins in the heat of the city. The date was August 25th, 1963. The place was Brooklyn, New York. The streets were loud. People yelled from stoops. Cars honked on the avenues. In the middle of this concrete jungle, a baby boy took his first breath. His name was Gregory Jacobs, but his mother had a secret reason for that name. She did not just pick it out of a hat. She looked at the television screen. She watched a man dance. He moved his feet so fast, they looked like a blur. He tapped out rhythms that sounded like gunfire. That man was the legendary tap dancer, Gregory Hines. She had a crush on him. She loved the way he moved. So she looked at her son and named him Gregory. She hoped some of that rhythm would get into his blood. She was right. Picture a small living room. The year is 1968. Gregory is only 5 years old. Most kids are playing with toy trucks or blocks. Gregory is different. He is standing in the middle of the floor. The record player is spinning. The sound of Motown fills the air. He hears the voice of Stevie Wonder. He does not just listen, he performs. He sings the songs. He mimics the moves. His parents invite friends over. They sit on the couch. They watch this little boy put on a show. They clap. They cheer. Gregory feels the love in the room. He feels the power of music. He realizes that making people smile feels better than anything else. But here's the deal. The city of Brooklyn could not hold him. His father got a big job promotion. The family had to pack their bags. They left the noise of the city behind. First, they moved to upstate New York. It was quieter there. The air was cleaner, but the journey was not over. Around the age of 8, the moving van came again. This time, they went south, way south. They moved to Tampa, Florida. The world changed completely. Gone were the tall buildings. Gone were the subway trains. Now, Gregory saw green trees and flat land. The air was thick and humid. It stuck to your skin. The sun was hot, but the neighborhood they moved into was special. It was an experiment. In the early 70s, the United States was still trying to fix deep wounds. Many places were divided. Black people lived on one side, white people lived on the other. But in this part of Tampa, they tried something new. It was an interracial experimental neighborhood. They wanted families of every race to live next to each other. Gregory looked out his window. He saw faces of all colors. He played with kids from different backgrounds. He did not see lines or walls. He just saw people. This melted into his brain. It changed how he saw the world. Later in life, his music would sound just like his neighborhood. It would be a mix of everything. It would have no walls, but do not let the nice neighborhood fool you. Gregory was wild. He fell in love with the country life. He did not stay inside. He went out to the water. Florida is full of rivers and lakes. The water is dark. It hides secrets. Most people stay on dry land. They know what lives in the mud. Gregory did not care. He jumped in. He swam in the rivers. He waded through the tall grass. He was fearless. The source material tells us something crazy. He used to catch snakes with his bare hands. Imagine that. A young boy reaching into the brush. He sees the scales. He sees the tongue flicking. He grabs it. But wait, it gets worse. He went after alligators. These are dinosaurs with sharp teeth. They can snap a bone in half. Gregory Jacobs chased them. He caught them. He held the danger in his hands and laughed. He had no fear of the bite. This tells you everything you need to know about his heart. He was willing to touch things that other people ran away from. He was willing to jump into murky water to find a prize. Around the age of 11, the game changed. The snakes in the swamps were fun, but the music came back. It pulled him in harder than before. He stopped just singing along. He started to study. He realized that music was a machine, and he wanted to know how it worked. He listened to the drums. He listened to the piano. He listened to the bass. He wasn't just entertaining his parents anymore. He was training. He was preparing for a war he did not know was coming. He had the rhythm of Gregory Hines in his name. He had the soul of Motown in his ears. He had the fearlessness of a snake catcher in his hands. But here's the twist that no one saw coming. Growing up in that experimental neighborhood taught him to love everyone. It taught him to share. It taught him that we are all in this together. He was a giver. If he caught a fish, he would share it. If he made a joke, he wanted you to laugh. His heart was wide open. In the swamps of Florida, if you catch a snake correctly, it cannot bite you. You control the danger. You hold it behind the head. You are the master. Gregory thought the world worked the same way. He thought if he was talented enough and kind enough, he would be safe. He thought he could handle the music business just like he handled those alligators. He was wrong. The music business is a different kind of swamp. The creatures there do not hiss before they strike, and the water is much, much deeper. The boy from Brooklyn was about to grow up. The piano was calling him. But the silence waiting for him at the end of the road was louder than any applause he heard in his living room. Picture a man putting on a mask. He slides a pair of plastic glasses over his eyes. Attached to the glasses is a fake nose. It looks ridiculous. It looks like a toy you buy at a party store for $1. He looks in the mirror. Gregory Jacobs disappears. A new man stares back. His name is Humpty Hump, and he is about to take over the world. In the history of rap music, many artists have two faces. The Wu-Tang Clan has aliases. The Chef is Raekwon. Tony Stark's is Ghostface, Killa. Johnny Blaze is Method Man. Even the great Eminem turns into Slim Shady when he gets angry. Nas calls himself Escobar. Jay-Z is Young Hova. The list goes on and on. But Shock G did it better than anyone. He created a character so famous that people forgot the man behind the mask. Here's the deal. The early 1990s were a special time. The music was changing. It was moving out of the parks and into the big stadiums. It was moving onto television screens in every home in America. According to the history books, 3 rappers kicked down the door to the pop world. 3 men helped hip-hop cross over into the mainstream. They brought rap music to people who had never listened to it before. One was MC Hammer. He had the big pants and the fancy dance moves. One was Vanilla Ice. He had the hair and the catchy hook. The third one was Shock G and his group, Digital Underground. Suddenly, the money started to rain down. It wasn't just record sales. It was the business world. It was endorsements. Big companies wanted a piece of the cool energy. Shock G was right in the middle of the storm. But Shock G was not just a guy in a funny costume. He was a musical genius. People forget this. They see the nose and they laugh, but his ears were golden. He was one of the most underrated producers of all time. He built the beats that made the world dance. Think about the sound of Digital Underground. It was not simple. It was a gumbo. It was a thick stew of sound. He took the smooth soul of jazz. He mixed in the sadness of the blues. He added the heavy groove of funk. He even sprinkled in some rock and roll. He mixed it all together in a pot and served it hot. The result was high energy rap. It was party music. You could not stand still when a Digital Underground song came on. It made your feet move. It made your head nod. They could do the funny comedic rap. They made you laugh. But they could also give you political hip hop. They made you think. And their shows? Man, you had to be there. People thought Luke and the 2 Live Crew had wild shows. They thought that was crazy. But Digital Underground had some wild stuff on stage too. It was a circus. It was a riot. It was pure energy. Then came the anthem. The song was called The Humpty Dance. It took over the radio. It took over the clubs. It took over the school dances. You heard that deep, goofy voice. You heard that thick bass line. That song became a legend. It has been sampled by over 50 different artists. That means 50 other musicians heard that beat and said, I need that. They took a piece of Shock G's genius and put it in their own songs. That is respect. That is power. But wait, it gets even bigger. Shock G did something for the culture that money cannot buy. He gave us a gift. There was a young roadie carrying crates for the group. He was a dancer. He was hungry. He had fire in his eyes. Nobody knew his name. Nobody cared who he was. Shock G saw something in him. He did not block the kid. He did not get jealous. He opened the door. He handed him a microphone. He put him on a track called Same Song. That kid was Tupac Shakur. If it wasn't for Shock G, you probably would have never heard of the late, great Tupac. He introduced Tupac to the world. He launched a career of one of the greatest voices in Black history. People do not give him enough credit for that. They talk about Tupac's movies. They talk about Tupac's albums. But they forget the man who gave him the first shot. Shock G was a trained musician. He could play almost any instrument. He could sit at a piano and play a concerto. He was an artist with a pen and brush, too. He could draw and paint beautiful pictures. He had the talent to keep all the money for himself. He could have bought 10 mansions. He could have bought a fleet of Ferraris. But remember the boy who caught snakes in Florida? Remember the boy who shared his fish? That boy was still inside the man. Shock G was a giving person. He loved his community. He wanted to help. Some people close to him say he basically gave all his fortunes away. He helped friends. He helped strangers. If you needed a hand, he offered his. He was living the high life, but his hands were open, not closed. He had the fame. He had the respect of the streets and the boardroom. He had created legends. He had saved hip-hop from being too serious. But gravity pulls hardest when you are at the top. The party was loud. The lights were bright. The world saw the plastic nose and the wide smile. They saw the Humpty dance and the joy. But while the world saw a smile, the shadows were growing. The music business takes a toll. Giving away pieces of yourself leaves you with holes that are hard to fill. The silence was coming back, and this time it would be deafening. The party had to end. That is the rule of life. The lights always come on. The music always fades. And when the silence comes, it is heavy. For Shock G, the silence was heavier than for anyone else. Picture a bank vault. Inside, there are stacks of money. There are gold bars. There is security. This is what a rap legend is supposed to have. After touring the world, after selling millions of records, after changing the sound of radio, the vault should be full. But Shock G's vault was open. The door was wide open. Here is the cold, hard truth. Shock G did not lose his money on bad investments. He did not lose it in a poker game. He did not lose it because he was foolish. He lost it because he was good. The source material tells us a painful fact. People close to him said he gave his fortune away. He was a giving person. He saw a hand reaching out and he put money in it. He saw a friend in trouble and he paid the bill. He saw a community that needed help and he wrote the check. Remember the boy in the Florida swamps? Remember how he shared his fish? That boy never left. He thought if he took care of the world would take care of him. But the world is not a small neighborhood in Tampa anymore. He emptied his pockets to feed others. But when his own pockets were empty, the room got very quiet. Gravity pulls hardest when you have nothing left to hold on to. The tragedy of Shock G is not just about money. It is about respect. Imagine being a painter. You paint beautiful landscapes. You mix colors like a master. You study the greats. But people only want to see you paint cartoons. Shock G was a musical genius. The facts prove it. He played the piano with the soul of a jazz master. He mixed funk and rock and blues into a gumbo that tasted like magic. He produced beats that 50 other artists wanted to steal. But the world did not call him a genius. The world called him Humpty Hump. They wanted the fake nose. They wanted the funny glasses. They wanted the clown. He gave them art. They wanted a joke. This eats away at a man. It creates a hole in the spirit. He was one of the most underrated producers of all time. He knew it. The industry knew it. But the fans just wanted to do the dance. And then there was the shadow of the giant he created. He found Tupac Shakur. He saw the fire in the young man. He gave him the stage. He gave him the microphone. He launched a rocket ship that went to the moon. But rockets leave smoke behind them. Tupac became the biggest star in the world. He became a martyr. He became a legend. Shock G stood in the background. He watched the student become the master, and then he watched the student die. The death of Tupac was a heavy blow. It was a dark cloud that never really went away. Now, picture the loneliness. The phone stops ringing. The people who ask for money are gone because there is no more money to give. The stadiums are not screaming your name anymore. You are just a man in a room. You are Gregory Jacobs again. But Gregory Jacobs is tired. He had given everything to the game. He gave his identity to become Humpty. He gave his platform to Tupac. He gave his money to the people. What did he have left for himself? The shadows started to creep in. The source material tells us he was a trained musician and an artist who could draw and paint. In his later years, he went back to that. He drew pictures. He played his keys. He tried to find the joy that he had when he was 5 years old listening to Stevie Wonder. But the demons of the industry are strong. When you are the life of the party, everyone loves you. When the party is over, you are just a guy with a plastic nose in your pocket and a hole in your chest. He drifted. The man who brought everyone together started to be alone more often. The man who caught snakes with his bare hands was now fighting a different kind of monster. This monster lived inside his head. It told him he wasn't enough. It told him the world had moved on. He traveled from city to city. He stayed in hotels. The road was his home because the home he built for everyone else was gone. It is a heartbreaking image. A genius sitting at a keyboard in a quiet room. His fingers still know the melody. His heart still knows the rhythm, but the audience is gone. He was the architect of the 90s sound. He was the bridge between the underground and the pop charts. He was the man who made it okay to laugh in hip hop, but he paid the ultimate price for his kindness. The ending of this story is not loud. It does not end with a concert. It does not end with a speech. It ends with silence. The man who gave us the Humpty dance eventually laid down to rest. He had given every piece of himself away until there was nothing left to give. He died as he lived, quietly, artistically, and misunderstood. The nose was fake. The glasses were plastic. But the pain was real. The tragedy is not that he died. The tragedy is that he loved us so much, he forgot to save some love for himself. And when he was gone, the world finally stopped laughing long enough to realize what we had lost. But by then, it was too late. The news broke on a quiet Thursday in April. It hit the internet like a lightning bolt striking a dry tree. People looked at their phones. They saw the headlines. Shock G was found dead in a hotel room in Tampa, Florida. The world stopped laughing. For a moment, the noise of social media paused. But then, the tributes started to flow. And here is where the story gets bitter. The news channels played the old clips. The ones they showed a man in a fake nose. They showed him wearing a fur coat in the summer. They played the video for the Humpty dance over and over again. They called him the clown prince of hip hop. They called him a one-hit wonder. But wait, it gets worse. The media missed the point completely. They mourned the mask, but they ignored the man. They showed the funny glasses, but they did not show the piano. They did not play the smooth jazz riffs he wrote. They did not talk about how he sketched portraits that looked like photographs. They reduced a musical genius to a cartoon character. But the streets knew the truth. Real hip-hop fans felt a sharp pain in their chests. They knew that the man in that hotel room was not a joke. He was an architect. When the radio stations played his songs that day, you could finally hear it. You could hear the sadness under the funk. You could hear the genius in the layers. People started to realize what they had lost. Picture the hypocrisy of fame. When Shock G was alive, the industry put him in a box. They wanted him to be Humpty Hump forever. They wanted the nose. They wanted the dance. When he tried to show them Gregory Jacobs, they looked away. When he played serious music, the sales went down. But the moment he died, everyone called him a legend. Famous rappers posted pictures with him. They wrote long stories about how he changed their lives. They called him a pioneer. They said he was the nicest man in the business. Here is the deal. Where were those people when he was alone? The source material tells us that Shock G gave his fortune away. He helped everyone. He was the man who bought the groceries. He was the man who paid the rent for friends. He emptied his own pockets to make sure his community was full. But when his pockets were empty, the crowd disappeared. Gravity pulls hardest when you are the one holding everyone else up. The aftermath of his death revealed a tragic pattern. We see it with so many stars. We consume their art. We eat up their energy. We demand that they entertain us. But we forget that they are human beings. We forgot that the man who caught alligators with his bare hands still had a heart that could break. In the weeks following his death, the stories came out. People talked about his kindness. They talked about how he discovered Tupac Shakur. Suddenly, the world realized the scale of the loss. Without Shock G, there is no Tupac. Without Shock G, the West Coast sound is different. Without Shock G, hip-hop takes itself too seriously and forgets to have fun. He was the bridge. He connected the funk of the 70s to the rap of the 90s. He connected the underground to the pop charts. But bridges get walked on. That is their job. And Shock G carried a lot of heavy traffic on his back. The tragedy is not just that he died. The tragedy is that he died alone, in a hotel room, just miles away from the swamps where he used to play as a boy. He came full circle. He went from the boy who shared his fish to the man who gave away his millions. He gave until he gave out. Now, the nose is back in the box. The plastic glasses are gathering dust. The music lives on, but the silence is loud. The world finally gave him his flowers, but he was not there to smell them. This is the price of a golden heart in a tin business. We laughed at the character, but we cried for the man. And the saddest part is that he probably would have forgiven us for it. He would have just wanted us to keep dancing. But the dance floor feels a lot emptier now. So, how do we measure the life of a man like Gregory Jacobs? Do we count the records he sold? Do we count the money he made? Do we look at the funny plastic nose and the glasses? If you look at the surface, you see a clown. You see a man who made the world laugh with the Humpty dance. You see the colorful clothes and the wild stage shows. But if you stop there, you miss the diamond hidden in the dirt. Here is the deal. Shock G was not just a rapper. He was a musical scientist. He took the smooth sounds of jazz and the heavy thump of funk. He mixed them together in a laboratory. He created a sound that made grandmothers tap their feet and teenagers jump out of their seats. He proved that hip-hop could be smart, musical, and fun all at the same time. But his legacy is bigger than the beats. Think about the family tree of hip-hop. Without Shock G, one of the biggest branches would be missing. He saw a young, angry, talented kid named Tupac Shakur carrying crates. He did not look down on him. He pulled him up. He gave him a microphone. He gave the world one of its greatest voices. That is the mark of a true king. A king does not just sit on the throne. A king builds other leaders. But wait, the story goes deeper. We live in a world that tells us to keep everything for ourselves. We are told to stack our money high. We are told to build fences to keep people out. Shock G did the opposite. He tore down the fences. He opened his wallet until there was nothing left inside. He gave his fortune to his friends, his family, and his community. He died without the millions that other stars have, but he died with a clean conscience. He was the boy from the experimental neighborhood who believed that sharing was the only way to live. The music business is a machine. It loves you when you are hot, and it forgets you when you are cold. It took a lot from Gregory Jacobs. It took his energy, it took his privacy, but it could not take his soul. The next time you hear that heavy bass line on the radio, do not just dance. Listen. Listen to the piano keys played by a master. Listen to the joy in the voice. Remember the man who was brave enough to wear a mask so he could show us his true heart. He was the underdog who won. He was the snake catcher who tamed the industry for a moment. He was the giver who gave until the very end. Some stories end without closure, but dignity doesn't need applause. We want to hear from you. Do you remember where you were the first time you heard Digital Underground? Did you know Shock G was the genius behind Tupac's start? Deeply tell us your memories in the comments below.